All right, I am going to, I'll read this and see what has to be done next. We've been called to order as much as we can be in order. We have adjourned to executive session. We have come back out of executive session. So I am now going to reconvene the regular board meeting and try to make an announcement regarding what we did in the executive session. The business of this executive session was to review the minutes of our past executive sessions, to review them, to approve them, to okay them for release, and to look back at other executive session minutes that had not been released and decide whether there are portions of them that are now able to be released. So what we did was we reviewed and approved the minutes of the following executive sessions: 1/9/18, 2/13/18, 3/13/18, 3/27/18, 4/10/18, and 5/30/18. We reviewed them, we approved them, and we okayed all of those for release. We also okayed for release executive session minutes from 3/27/17. In addition, we decided that it was appropriate under the law to authorize the destruction of the existing recordings of our executive sessions that have occurred more than 18 months earlier. And those two sets of recordings that can now be destroyed are 7/12/16 and 1/10/17. All right, have I missed anything? Did I get it all?
I think you did.
Okay. Phew. That's the hardest part of the meeting done with. All right. All right, agenda. You wanna make a motion?
Did we still have to approve those?
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry, you're just announcing.
I'm reporting them, right. of what
Correct,
we did. I think
we're
we
good
don't have
then.
to do any of
We've
it.
done that official.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Great.
right, public comment. I don't see Beth.
I don't see Beth here.
Yes, but I
She
do
was
see
planning to
Katie,
be
so I
here.
know she's gonna introduce
Yes, we do have an
a
introduction.
new person to us.
Please come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I am pleased to introduce Chelsea Prowl, who's our new environmental education coordinator. She's not new to the district. I think she's held every part-time position that we have at the Nature Center over the last 4 years, which makes training her the last 2 days. We went through 4 days of training in less than 2 days, so it makes things go really fast. I'll let her talk about some things that she's looking at and what she has to say about her new job.
Well, like Judy said, I've been with the Park District for 4 years. I absolutely love what I do as an environmental educator, as a part of this community, and I'm really excited for these opportunities to come and very honored for the position. So thank you.
Yeah, we're just off of finishing our summer, and Chelsea was our site supervisor for our camp summer this year and managed to take, they have 2 weeks of staff training, and typically we get about a month worth of planning done from the staff, and we got 5 or 6 weeks done this time. So the staff were well prepared, and we're able to kind of jump into the camp season without having to worry about getting planning for the next couple weeks going. Yeah, it was good. It was a good summer. Where it's over, and we're glad it's over, but it was fun to have all those people running around. Yeah. So we'll be busy starting school tours the first week of September, and she's got a couple weeks to hire new staff and get our volunteers up and going. So, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Usually
Yeah.
we say welcome aboard, but
You're already aboard, so.
Still aboard.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
we had about 55 applicants, and we did phone interviews with 10, invited 4 for in-person interviews, which included a presentation to a staff and a volunteer team. And Chelsea blew everybody pretty much out of the water. She really knocked it out. We learned things about the bioswales at the parking lot at the Nature Center that we didn't even know, so it was really fun. Yeah.
It's that EIU background.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
And I had it at my fingertips. I just knew who to ask.
Yeah,
So,
she did.
And I was just always impressed by your ability to manage all the children at nature camp. So,
with
yeah.
no whip.
Oh, no. But a
you.
good strong voice. Hey, campers.
Carries.
I just-
And you should see her sing songs. Those,
Yes.
most energetic song leader I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
Someone just told me today they can hear me during their morning water aerobics. Like, thank you.
I love
I'm
it.
going to get complaints.
Well, no, I've been at both 8 and 11. I can say that I haven't heard you. And I may be old and going deaf, but it's certainly not a problem. People aren't saying that, there she is again.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was public comment B. We have 2 other people. Would anyone else like to speak to us? Yes.
Should I sit there?
Yes, please.
Yes.
We'll want to get you to fill a card out before you leave, though, just so we can keep record of that. Yep.
I'll do that. Okay,
Great.
so I'll make it really brief.
Sure.
Come on up, we'll be glad to listen.
I think I've seen some of you last year in September when a group of us came. Now I'm trying to make this a 2-minute description. We will be coming back, coordinating with Tim next month's meeting, I think the September 13th, whenever it is on the second Tuesday. And then we'll describe more of what we've been up to. We've been meeting quite extensively over the last year to propose this idea of Composer's Cove, which is an interim project of an artist in residence capacity on Franklin Street. And the whole idea is really simple, is that if artists can live somewhere for free for 3 to 6 months, then they would be willing and interested to be doing community arts with the people in the neighborhood around Crystal Lake Park. And the neighborhood is the east, the south, and the west side. So it's taken a while in talking with the Park District because the priorities of the Park District are to own the properties on Franklin Street, turn it into open spaces. And we are coming there saying, oh, wait a minute, could we please use 117 Franklin, don't demolish it. We'd like to try as an interim project with an ending date to use that house as a house where we would have artists and residents live. So we've been figuring out a plan. We've also been talking about tiny houses, which would solve several problems. One, they would not be, the land would be owned by the Park District, but the tiny houses would be owned by the group in our project. So that would make it sort of solve everything. So we could have the project happening and still the Park District would have the land. So that's something we're moving in. And we're also moving, though, indefinitely and trying to, not indefinitely, but definitely trying to use 117, possibly by purchasing it from the Parks District for a limited time period. This is more than 2 minutes. Just the last thing, we have been going forward on this artist in residence project. We've been doing it anyway as School for Designing Society for years, housing artists in my house and the house across the way. So we had a barbecue. We're trying to do canvassing in the area so that we get to know what people want and who they are and what their limitations of walking, mobility. Older people can't get to places because there's no wheelchair access, et cetera. So we did a lot of canvassing for the barbecue. We had about 100 people show up in May, and we did puppet making, and now we're planning another canvassing at the end of September and having a mosaic making, inviting people to learn how to mosaic their home address so that they'll go home with a brick paver and their home address and have something where they can go. And also these barbecues, we're also feeding everybody because we feel like people need to get things for free and getting food and an arts project. So that took more than 2 minutes, but that is.
We're good.
That's okay.
Good, you're good.
Thanks, Susan. It was nice.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Good seeing you.
And I'll fill that card out.
All right, well, we'll wait for Beth. We won't wait for Beth, we'll just go on.
Mhm.
Our next item on the agenda is the UPDAC class appointments.
As you can see, you have the list of candidates. I know our staff was very pleased with the number of folks that we had this year. I know we've started our park tours, orientation. I assume the board's had a chance to contact anybody that they've needed to or would like to. I didn't know if you all had any other concerns or questions about anybody on the list.
I don't have any
think that-
questions about people on the list. I think it's a really good list of people, but I think that we're not doing a very good job of managing the appointments and getting people to talk to them. And it seemed to me to be, when I was looking over Ellen's comments, that it's a pretty tedious waste of her time to be talking to everybody, each of these individuals. I mean, I don't know, maybe she has gotten a group of people to take them around, but I think that we could use her time better. And I don't mind that we've drifted away from the way we used to do it, but I don't think we have any,
We haven't updated our
we haven't
processes.
updated the
I mean, I'm
process at all.
in agreement with you because it seemed very confusing for a couple of reasons. Two people we interviewed thoroughly.
Yeah,
And I didn't really think they needed to be contacted. Also, I think we moved from trying to recruit, which I still think we need to recruit, but
Yes.
all of these folks self-selected. So to me, that showed their interest, and so not necessarily. So I think the way we were doing it was a little bit antiquated, and so we need to rethink.
Right,
I'm in complete agreement with you on how we move forward on this. I think I expressed my concerns as well to Ellen. Like, I'm confused. I think this is because they have already said they are. So I think it's something we definitely need to look at.
Well, I think our staff recommendation was to work with the UPDAC
Yeah.
study group to look at our bylaws and our procedures and revise and make recommendations back to the full board. You know, what we've seen over the years is kind of moving more into advertising, promoting to attract. We've done that and we've had success. Then we typically have our staff function of get to know them, orientation, park tour. So there could maybe be a shift in duties of staff. We don't mind doing that. We love doing it. We like to make that strong connection. Maybe there's a different role or a role to be defined yet. But it's very different than how we used to do it, sort of consider names, then a long consideration process, and then appointing. Right.
Yes.
And so I think we're kind of a little bit moving faster. People, need to, it's nice to know. We're kind of doing things a little different because we end, at our June meeting, then we take July off, and then we start with the orientation and the picnic. And that's been a real plus, getting to know people, getting a fresh connection. So yeah, we've kind of changed the whole, except the paperwork that's sort of supposed to guide how we do it.
And, sorry, I think where we do need to be intentional is where we have lack of representation, right? So or looking at the representation and maybe trying again to work ahead of time to sort of
Right.
work in the neighborhoods and find the people who would be champions
Exactly.
for their neighborhood park,
Well-
who would have never thought about this. So there's a better
think,
representation.
Another kind of a good lead-in, feed-in is our outreach approach, because we're now penetrating neighborhoods where staff know enough to at least we could approach people and ask, hey, would you be interested in UPDAC? Get them the information. We go to neighborhood meetings and so I think we could create a better conduit to connect with people through having that division.
I think as we're building these connections, we've already built a couple connections with a
Right.
couple different people in the different neighborhoods that are actual leaders in those neighborhoods, which I think might be very beneficial as we move through this process.
Because then the word will spread from them, since
Right.
They're already spreading the word if they're
You know,
more involved.
There's a lot of research and study done on, why underrepresented groups don't have high levels of civic engagement. There's a lot of theory and a lot of practice and a lot of research that has gone into that. The bottom line is we're out there trying to make new connections. So if we're out there doing that, I think we can make those connections, to get a better representation across the board. In general, we still see a high interest in serving. People, of Urbana are interested, but trying to get basically more neighborhood and areas of Urbana represented has always been more of our challenge. I think we have better tools now to get that done better. So maybe there's more of a strategy we start to put together, work with the study group and come up with some recommendations.
Yeah.
The study group is me and LaShonda, is that right?
And
Okay.
Ellen and I, and
Yeah.
our chair from UPDAC, right? So we have 5 people now that are, concerted effort to focus on this and make
So am I
improvements.
hearing, and maybe I misunderstood, that you will have a proposal perhaps for a different way of handling,
Yes.
and you will present that to us?
Typically, what we do is work in study group with the UPDAC planning group, so we'll consider all the possibilities, but basically come up with recommendations, bring them back to the full board.
Okay.
To make changes formally, and then we'll have all the documents updated. Or however they would like to do it, if they want to do it simpler or less formal, we can do it that way.
How about if we put on either this upcoming study session agenda
Yes.
or the following one, so that we can all talk about it, because
Sure.
everybody should be
Yes.
back by then.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
we can talk about it, and LaShonda and I will have a sense of what the board is doing, and we don't have to,
Right.
dream up our own ideas and come back,
Sure.
and then everybody says, well, that's really dumb.
right.
Let's try this.
Yep.
So,
Be a good topic for October. I know I'm recommending in my report that we have the School for Designing Society come in
oh,
September.
okay, sure.
We really need to have that
Yeah.
discussion and
that
see
makes
where
sense.
we're gonna
That's what
go.
I would say, yeah.
But certainly for October, that'd be a good
Yeah, I think-
follow-up.
I think that
Give
would
it-
be great.
We might need to have another study group meeting on that, just to get
Oh,
our
sure, yeah,
ducks
and
in a row.
We can do it after,
Yep.
but I think if we do it after the whole
Yep,
board discusses.
sounds
it,
great.
it'll be-
That's exactly what Ellen and I talked about today, is hopefully the board would be ready for that kind of a shift,
Yeah.
to look at it fresh.
Yeah, I don't think anybody
Okay,
is unhappy
great.
with the new way of doing it.
Well, we've, I think, created our own cumberness some about it, and we can make it probably more efficient if we work together on that.
Well, I
Great.
appreciate your proactiveness on
Mhm.
that.
It's working. I think we're seeing very different profile emerge.
Yeah, and I will say that I, in regards to this group, that I was especially glad to see people who had been interested to be, or essentially board candidates, prospective board candidates,
Right,
were willing to serve on OPDAC. I mean, they were very impressive in their
right,
presentations, and
Right.
I was really happy that the both of them were willing to
sure, of course.
join us and to
Well, I
be
think,
part of this upcoming group.
there's several others too. It's interesting how they came to us. So I think in addition to representation, which is really critical, I think it's interesting and important how they find out and how they come to us, their interest to seek us out, so.
All right. So I move to approve the following candidates to serve a three-year terms as part of the 2018-19 class for the Urbana Park District Advisory Committee, UPDAC. The candidates are Kelly Borger, Howard Shine, Heath Isom, Timothy Stevens, Ben Kapp, Jean Paley, Tomas Delgado, Sarah Roper, and Travis Scheiss.
Second?
Any discussion? We need to vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's done.
Great, thank you.
All right, advisory committee.
I think you see Melissa's report that's attached, I believe, her written report.
Yes, and I will just add that the guy from the city, whose name I can't remember.
Marcus Ricci.
Yes. He thought that this was one of the best of these planning, visioning
Mhm.
events that we had. We divided up into groups and
It's a good
talked
time.
about what people thought would be important to have square feet done. And I will say it wasn't fair because the people who had Tim on their group really have the best presentation.
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm trying not to be, not to be sad about that, but it was a very good meeting, and I think that I commend the city for doing that, and UPDAC was a
Mhm.
perfect group for them to come
Mhm.
into. It was a very good meeting.
Mhm.
People were really engaged in what was going on.
Before we get to the consent agenda, I noticed that Beth is here.
Oh, good, yes, thanks.
Oh, great.
Perfect timing. Beth, we're ready for you.
I'm sorry, I thought the meeting started at 7:30, so.
Oh, well, we're the early birds.
What I have is the breeding bird survey from last year, and I'll maybe just read the letter that goes with it. It says, "Dear Tim and Commissioners, Champaign County Audubon would once again like to commend the Urbana Park District for its strong commitment to careful management of the natural areas in its system. With the addition of the wetland project at the Perkins Road site, a wide range of habitat variety is included in Park District property, woodlands at Busey, prairie and stream corridor at Meadowbrook, and wetlands and prairie at Perkins. The provision for and protection of natural areas in the development plans for Weaver Park is also valuable. These, and I might mention, the most exciting thing I've seen this spring or this summer is a family of coots at Weaver Park. So these oases for wildlife within our large expanse of agricultural fields become increasingly important as our towns expand around them. These areas are particularly vital rest stops for migrating birds in spring and fall. Keep up the good work. This report covers the year 2017. About 8 observers were involved, plus information collected from other observers via our Audubon Bird Notes listserv. Beth Chato organized the effort, did the data compilation and entry. Other contributors include Charlene Anker, Roger Diggs, Helen Parker, and Bob Vaden. During breeding season, a total of roughly 20 hours was spent in the field, plus an estimate of 25 hours for computer data entry. Busey Woods Crystal Lake Park had 58 breeding species, including a family of barred owls and a large number of blue-gray gnatcatchers. A Prowl warbler was also there. And because Crystal and Lake and Busey are a major stop for migrating birds, I put in some additional list of spring arrival dates and their Audubon spring bird walks. Meadowbrook Park had 54 breeding bird species. Highlights were a green heron, as well as nesting bluebirds and tree swallows. Perkins site continues to be a home for young wood ducks, and this year, unfortunately, it dried up very quickly, and so there were no young wood ducks. I also had spotted sandpipers, a yellow-billed cuckoo, and the only yellow warbler among the parks, for a total of 43 species. Weaver, with its marsh, is becoming an exciting place as one of the best of the few wetlands in the county. It had breeding evidence of 36 species, and a great white egret was an unusual summer visitor. So if you had any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And I can send this electronically. I wasn't sure who to send it to, so I will do that. Okay.
That's a lot of different kinds of birds for not very big spaces.
Yeah. There's also a list in here of the, that includes the forest preserves too, and the numbers of each. And let's see. The highest is Middle Fork with 69, but Busey Crystal Lake at 58. And it's birded a lot more than the other parks. That's one reason I think it has higher species. Meadowbrook 54, Perkins 43, and Weaver 36.
How do you establish that it's a breeding pair?
Well, by looking, and we.
I mean, do you have certain criteria? You have to see a nest. You have to.
Yeah, there's a code in here. For instance, probable evidence of breeding is a multiple singing males, 7 or more, or a pair, or ones that you see holding territory a week apart, the same bird in the same area, courtship, visiting probable nest site, agitated behavior, nest building. And then confirmed evidence of breeding is distraction display, where someone tries to lure you away from a used nest, or some fledglings of birds, or birds on the nest, or an adult carrying a fecal sack because they clean out the nest, take an adult with food for young, a nest with eggs, or a nest with young birds. So there's a whole formal, this comes from the state, formal.
Right, but you don't have to take off all of those, it's a certain number of those that.
Yeah, well, I write down for each species that I see some sign what the evidence is. It can be from just being there to one of the more former ones. And I made out a couple of new ones because this was put up basically for like one person going on one tour all the way through a bunch of things. And I have for birds that are there all year, I can have immature birds if I see a family of birds, which is not in their list. So that's what I do.
Beth, how many years have you guys been doing this report?
Oh.
It's
a long time.
I've been here 25 years, and I think it was before that.
No, maybe not 25.
Okay.
We were
just a long time, though.
Yeah, it's been a long time. We were just looking back at the Audubon Sunday morning bird walks and trying to get the data for those.
Mm-hmm.
And they went back to 45, something like that, but we've lost some of the old data.
I see.
And I've got records from about 70, but I'm not sure when I started with the breeding. And Roger Diggs is now did Meadowbrook Park this year and they'll help with Meadowbrook in the past too.
Used to meet at the Nature Center still. When you
Yeah, and we'll be starting up again the first Sunday in September.
Over 20 years. long history of information. It's terrific.
And that's why someone has agreed to, Jenny Applequist is putting it now in computer.
Right.
I have the last few years in computer. And then it's going to send it into the Cornell or one of the officials, so it will be part of the record, yeah.
Exciting.
So how do these compare with last year, the numbers? Are they up, are they down, are they about the same?
About the same, yeah, I think. This year will be maybe a little less because I was away for part of June. So it's usually June and July are the areas when you go, yeah, but.
If you have old reports, we'd be happy to scan and record them. If you'd like help, we could do that. So
Okay,
just let us know.
yeah, I probably do have
Good way for us
reports
to
of these
retain
too.
records and,
Yeah.
because I'm sure in the future, somebody will be interested in looking back.
Yeah. And I will send these to Derek, and I think I did last year too, but that may be the first 2 years I've done that,
Perfect.
so.
Thank you for coming. and
Thank you.
for
Yeah.
all
Well, I
the
like the
work
chance
that
to
you
come.
do.
I could just send the electrically, but that's no fun.
No.
Great to have you here.
Much nicer to have you. Who wants a
We
paper
love it.
copy?
You want to hold on to it? Okay.
There's the agenda.
Okay. No, I've got a couple I can send over. Yeah.
Okay, now the work begins and have all the fun.
I think we're
So
at consent. Yep.
Consent agenda is up next. And my job is to ask if there's any item on this consent agenda that any of us wishes to discuss or to be removed from the consent agenda.
Did you want to read the agenda, or the,
Oh,
it says the
okay.
chair will read the title of each item into the record.
All right, A for F. Okay, so these are the things that we're thinking about. Approval of the minutes of the July 10 regular board meeting. Monthly reports, which consist of the administration, planning and operations, and recreation reports. Action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude. Approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, which never seems. And action on resolution 2018-11 to enter into a tenant lease agreement for 2808 South Race.
Oh, there's one more. F.
F. Action on the ordinance 2018-10 authorizing the sale and disposal of personal property.
I move to approve all of the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we need a roll call vote here.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Great,
on to the money.
great.
Okay. Well, since we didn't present financial reports at the last meeting, I prepared a treasurer's report for June and for July, so that's the only additional report I prepared this time. The last time that we skipped financial reports was the May meeting, but in June then I presented pretty much the full slate of reports since it covered the end of the fiscal year. Because of the timing of when I was gone. So I think this will get us back up to speed, and I don't need to spend too much extra time on the reports other than that extra treasurer's report tonight. So the first report that I'll talk about is the first of two budget reports. This report is called the Fund Balance Report, and it shows the receipts and expenditures for the prior 12-month period, the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for the 3 months ending July 31st. The first page is what we call Sum 1, and this is all funds except for the Capital Improvements Fund. Revenues for this period were $5,037,000, and $3,757,000 of that was property taxes. We've received about 54%, 55% of our property taxes thus far. The bulk of our taxes are received in June and September. So we get the biggest payments in those 2 months because that's based on the due dates of the property taxes in our county. In earlier months of the year, revenues exceed expenditures considerably, and that is because of the timing of these property taxes. So you can see our expenditures for this period were $2,473,000, which leaves an excess of revenues of over expenditures paid of $2,564,000. And there's a net change in fund balance after 3 months of $2,406,000. Sum 2, which is on the next page, is just the Capital Improvements Fund. And for Roger, because he's new. The reason that we separate the capital improvements fund out is it is a governmental fund, just like our other funds, but it operates very differently. It's on its own kind of schedule, and the whole goal of this fund is to spend it all, and it can really cloud up the rest of the operating budget. And so we separate it out into its own report, just for financial reporting at the board meetings, so that you can get a better idea of how our operating is doing versus how our capital is doing. Sum two is only the capital improvements fund. Revenues for this 3-month period were $36,000 and expenditures were $359,000. Expenditures exceed revenue after 3 months, and that means there was a deficit of $323,000. A transfer from the English fund brought the total of other sources up to $158,000, and that leaves a net decrease in fund balance in the capital improvements fund of $165,000. And I'll talk a little bit more about that English fund transfer as we work through the rest of the reports. So, if you have more questions after I've finished, you can please ask. And finally, sum three is all funds district-wide. This is simply if you add up sum one and sum two, it equals this report. So it's those two added together. And I like to note the very bottom of the right column is the fund balance of the entire park district after this point in the year is $9,353,000. And following that are the summary reports for the individual main working funds of the park district, which is the general fund, the recreation fund, the museum fund, and the indoor pool fund. So if you have any specific questions about those, I'll happily entertain them. And otherwise, we'll move on to the budget analysis with history report. This report shows a historical comparison of the same 3-month period compared to the prior 3 years. So 3 out of 12 months, we're at 25% of the year. And that's a number you can use to compare to throughout the report to check for reasonableness. Highlights of this report are that this first section, the first 3 pages of the report are all funds district-wide. And so in the middle of page 2, you can see the total revenue and transfers in for this period were $5,281,000. And if you skip back to page 1, you can see all of the different property tax levies are listed there at the very beginning, and we've received about 55% of all of our taxes at this point in the year. And if you now go back to page 2, towards the bottom there is the beginning of the expenditures section. And if you track across the page, you can see for each line item that we're tracking pretty consistently with the prior 3 years in all categories. So I was keeping an eye on that. You know, summer is when we do the bulk of our spending. So it's kind of front loaded due to all of our programming that is at its peak in those months. And so it's a good time to kind of analyze these figures, to start analyzing them as we're working through July and August and into the rest of the year.
And how does an entity determine when its fiscal year is? Is it by law?
Well,
Or can you just choose what you want to do?
Yeah, you can choose. A lot of the reason park districts are April, though, is because you want the timing of your property tax levy and the timing of your peak season to coincide so that the property taxes are supporting the peak of your business. But there are quite a few park districts whose fiscal year is the calendar year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So, I mean, it just varies. It really does. But I would say the majority of park districts in Illinois are April 30th, just like us. The majority. But there are some that are calendar year. And there are some, I mean, it's a difficult process, but you can switch your fiscal year if you want to. You basically have a short year.
I don't think we do that to you.
I mean, I would think that there'd have to be strong reasons to do
Yeah,
it.
we just have.
Yeah, and if it's working, if
I
it's
mean,
working.
Short of
But-
getting it with our capital cycle, but
Yeah, and it's kind of the same reason like school districts are July 1st because their operating season is August through May. So it makes sense, like you wouldn't necessarily want April 30th for them because you're still partially in the old school year. And so, yeah, every, of these independent taxing districts has to choose their fiscal year for themselves and what makes the most sense. So,
Thanks. I was just
sure.
curious.
So on the bottom of page 3, you can see total expenditures and transfers out for this period were $3,039,000 with a surplus at the end of July of $2,241,000. The reason that this report differs some from the fund balance report is because this report includes fund transfers as part of the revenues and expenditure totals. And so the numbers, they are all the same numbers. They can be traced because all of this is just a roll up of our general ledger detail, but it's just grouping them slightly differently. And so the totals come out slightly different. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So. All right, so we're going to move on now to the June treasurer's report. And I was just going to present both treasurer's reports and then have you just bulk approve both at the same time, if that's okay. So I have 2 treasurer's reports for tonight. The first is the June report, and this report summarizes the amount of cash that the district has on one day, June 30th, 2018. All 24 funds are listed with where cash is invested for a grand total of $11,358,164.27. Moving on to page 2, the first section at the top lists amounts that we have in interest-bearing accounts. So of the $11,358,000 that the district has, $10,446,000 is out in investments. In June, we made our final payment on the Carl settlement. So the amount that used to be listed in the gray box with Busey Wealth Management, that account was closed, and you will no longer see that appear in that subsection of this report under the set aside for hospitals section. So that disappeared, which is why it's not on there. It usually is. All right. So the next section is interfund loans. And we did have an interfund loan in June between the recreation fund and the indoor pool fund. And that was because of operating cash at the indoor pool was low because we hadn't received the school district's contribution for fiscal year 18 yet, which we received in July. So it clears on the next report that you'll see, but we just needed some operating cash to get through that period. And the final section on the last page lists disbursements. Vendor payments match the paid accounts payable that was on the last month's consent agenda for this report. And there were total disbursements of funds of $1,093,000. And you can also see under the bond fund section that we made $269,000 in bond interest payments in the month of June. So I've said before, I would say a typical month for the park district is kind of more around $500,000 in spending, but the summer months are always a swell of spending because our payrolls are much larger. We've got bond interest payments. You'll see in the next month it's also just as large. So that's typical, and this is pretty average. So, so nothing to be concerned about. I think it was a pretty good summer for us. So now I'll move on to the July treasurer's report. So the grand total of cash at the end of July was $2,617.22. And we had investments of that amount of $9,332,000. And the interfund loan you can see cleared. So we no longer have that interfund loan outstanding in July because we received the school district's payment for FY18's operating of the indoor pool. And disbursements of funds for July were $1,284,000. And again, that was large, but if you look, really the culprit in July was the pool pack. And you can see in the indoor pool fund that we spent $450,000 on vendor payments, and the bulk of that was the one payment to Reliable for the pool pack. So that was part of the reason that our expenditures were so high for this particular month.
And we weren't paying for the whole thing, right?
Right. We paid we're paying for 50% of the first $80,000, so we'll pay $40,000 of that. And then at any expenditures beyond that for this whole year will be split 60-40 with us paying 40. So it's going to be the amount that we were expecting and budgeting to spend was just under $300,000, but that included contingency on the project. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I don't think that we're going to wind up spending all of that on this particular project.
But we did pay the whole thing and then they paid us. We
Right.
billed them.
But the long-term view is that
Yeah, right.
Okay, so with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them about the treasurer's reports for June and July, and otherwise I present them to you for your approval.
I move to accept the June and July treasurer's report for audit.
Second?
Any discussion? Since it's money, let's do a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Great. I have a couple other reports to present. The first is the supplemental report of cash for July. And this report has the same information as the first page of the treasurer's report, but it groups the information by expected use rather than by fund name. The 3 expected uses are daily operating funds, restricted special needs, and restricted gifts and donations. You can see of the $11,003,000 that are available to the Park District, $1,106,000 is restricted, which leaves $9,897,000 available as spendable cash. And that restricted amount did go down by $150,000 or so because of that final settlement payment. So that came out of the hospital set-asides column when we made the payment. And finally, I'll touch on the activity and the capital budgets. So the areas on this report that are highlighted with an asterisk symbol are where there's been activity this period. In the 2018 capital budget, we made a transfer from the English fund for UPD's share of the pool pack replacement. So the expense itself is paid for out of the indoor pool, and then we cover our share out of the capital budget, and we're funding that share with a transfer from the English fund. So there's a lot of steps that are going into how this is getting paid for. And then we also then turn around and bill the school district for their share, and their revenue goes directly into UIC's budget. So we're doing a transfer from the English fund into capital, and then we do a transfer from capital into UIC. So that's how that's the pathway that money's moving for our half. And then the school district's half's pretty cut and dry. We send them an invoice and they cut us a check, and it's all into the Aquatic Center budget.
And we won't have to wait.
No, they already gave it to us.
That's
Yeah.
one, okay.
Yeah, we were concerned because that, like we are always doing these operating cash loans with the indoor pool. We were concerned we wouldn't be able to pay the actual check because we don't have that much cash in that fund. I mean, we barely scrape by on it, until we get the operating, because what's happening is we're spending all throughout the year,
Right.
but we're not billing for the spending until the end of the year.
Right.
And so then when they pay us, then we're flush again for a little while until we spend it all again.
Right.
Because that pool's operating in a deficit all the time. We're each partner is putting in over $200,000 a year to keep that pool running. That's directly as support, that is not, generating dollars. So that's money that at the end of the year, a lot of times we're having to do these operating cash loans just to keep the bills paid. So anyway, we asked Carol if she might be able, at the school district, if she might be able to front us the money that we knew was expected for the pool pack. And then at the end, we'll settle up. If we don't wind up spending the contingency, we'll be returning that extra to them.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
it was just for cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me get back on track. A transfer was in from the English fund was recognized for UP's share of the pool pack. Donations were received for tributes, and we received a refund for dead tribute trees that was recognized as a credit in the tributes expense line. So you can see that -90. I guess, yeah, I didn't ask Rich about that particular transaction, but I guess we got some money back for some trees that died.
Dead tree for-
And then other expenses were paid towards the King Park Bank Shot basketball project, UPD's share of the UIC pool pack, and the parking lot at Weaver Park Trailhead, and alum dosing on Crystal Lake was down in the water quality section.
Okay.
Moving on to the 2017 capital budget. Expenditures occurred in ADA projects on the James Room project. EAB treatment chemicals were purchased out of the EAB, out of the Emerald Ash Borer Hazard Tree Work line. And the final payment was made to RPC on the KRT connectivity study of $2,000. Expenses were also paid for engineering on the ITEP Park Street Path project, the sediment basin project, and improvements at Amblex Park. And finally, in the 2016 capital budget, this month, expenditures occurred on construction crew projects, and another portion of the King Park Bank Shot basketball project was paid out of this budget as well. And now Andy and Derek have some updates for you on capital projects.
Yep. So it's a few projects have completed since my last update. The first one was completed about a month and a half ago. Katie had mentioned it. It's the King Park courts. If you haven't had a chance to go check them out, I would recommend it. They look great. The bank shot, 13 station bank shot systems, very appealing, very colorful. Should attract a lot of new users. We've had rec staff actually using it already, I believe, at a park event. And I know sports camp was out there a week or two ago as well. So
Andy, we were doing park tour with new updeck, and we saw people on several tours out there just playing. So
great.
it's definitely
Yeah, I've been driving
cool.
by occasionally and checking on it. So
Staff have also reached out to King School to set up time to meet with the PE teachers there and show them how it works. So,
yeah, I think Mark's going to be creating a video pretty soon too to share out for social media to try to get. It's such a new amenity, you know. It's not.
Yeah,
It's,
not every, you can't,
What do you do with it?
right,
Right.
yeah, figure out how it goes.
so hopefully that should build some interest as well. Our Phillips Center siding project wrapped up a couple weeks ago. There's still a little touch-up painting that needs to be done, but everything's put up. It looks great. Georgina and her landscaping crew have done an excellent job. They finished their installation for the landscaping around the building and the parking lot. So this time next year, after it continues to grow and fill, it'll just continue to look even better. It's really
looks awesome.
Who doesn't love it? I can't, there's so many butterflies.
Love it.
On newly planted stuff, too, yeah, oh, yeah. Beautiful.
We have some LED lighting projects in the works. Actually, one was recently completed at the indoor pool during that 3-week closure. The can lights on the mezzanine and in the party room were replaced with LED fixtures. And then in the end of August, we're actually going to have the electrician out to the lake house to redo lighting in the rental room, which is much needed. So the pendant lighting on the wall will get replaced with LED, and then we'll actually have track lighting along 2 of the beams on the ceiling. Each one will be independently dimmable as well, so it'll accommodate a variety of programs and rentals. Obviously, you'll have different lighting needs for a wedding reception than maybe an art class, so that should be completed by September. Our big project of the summer was the pool pack replacement. Very tight schedule, and we had managed to get everything done on schedule. Unit installed and operational for the August 11th reopening date of the indoor pool.
So happy.
It's amazing. So basically, before this new system, we were at the 2.1, around 2 air changes per hour. Now we're around 4. So we've doubled the capacity or the work for that unit there, and we should see some definite improvements with the air quality. And I think we're going to take the opportunity to look at replacing some equipment that's been damaged from that corrosive environment in the past, and kind of giving a new fresh look to some other things in the building.
That would be sort of a sop to those of us who are not real anxious to go back from outside.
Yeah.
That's something new and exciting would be.
New and exciting.
Yeah.
Right.
Last thing I wanted to mention was an upcoming project with the outdoor pool. We're hoping to have a remodeling project out to bid in the next few weeks. So this will include replacing of all the exterior lockers. Currently there's a lot of fading and warping on some of those doors, so we would be replacing with a new style of locker. It's the phenolic. It's actually warranted for outdoor use, so we should not see those issues in the future. And then we're actually going to add new wallet-sized lockers.
Oh, good.
If you remember on the tours, Roger, you too probably saw it a lot of times by the walking tracks. There was those small lockers. Basically put your wallet, keys, maybe cell phone in it. You're not taking up the space of a large locker if you don't need it. So I think we're doing 2 panels. It's going to be about 26 of those in the men's locker room and in the women's locker room.
Inside, I mean outside.
They're going to
Inside.
be inside.
Inside.
The small ones.
They're
Small
small,
ones.
yeah.
They're just,
Right, okay. Gotcha. Because there are none.
Mainly in the
there are none
entryways,
inside.
as you come in, there's some big walls
Yep, yep.
in each one.
Cool.
And that's gonna be the ones that are actually locked, right?
Yeah, the key.
Key locks. The ones outside, we've lost a lot of keys. It's really expensive to replace them. So we're going with more of a padlock situation where you bring a padlock, or we'll have padlocks that you can sell.
Why not the number?
Nope.
They
We-
require a battery.
Oh,
Work.
They don't hold up well outside.
okay.
Cersei
We
had
looked
them,
into that one,
and
yeah.
they've ripped them all out and gone back to combination locks. They just couldn't keep up with it. The keys, the same thing. So you kind of see everybody cycle through all these new things and then kind of come back to the what really works.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, we had discussion on this for about 2 or 3 months on what, there really is no great solution,
Everywhere,
but
right?
the best solution's not paying a couple $100 to get locks switched out either when you lose them so
Isn't
fast.
the mechanical button system, I mean, that's what we have on our front door, is a mechanical, so that, I mean, that's obviously
That-
outside.
That's what they had at Cersei, and they jam up and stopped working, and people would forget their numbers. I mean, there's a whole host of issues of,
One of the-
dysfunction.
Yeah, one of the lake projects we toured this summer, they put those in near kind of a boating operation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they regretted it
Yep.
weeks after putting it in because
Yeah.
everybody was forgetting their codes.
Yeah,
And so
right.
Constantly
Yeah.
asking, do you have identification in there? Let me unlock.
Right.
Yeah.
So probably a simple approach might be
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
then people could just have their own lock and they're good to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's also why we wanted to add more wallet-sized lockers, so.
I carry mine in my gym bag, just clip it to it, and it's ready to go with the lock. So anywhere I go, it's ready.
Is there ready to, yeah.
It's cheaper, so
Yeah, sometimes the oldest is the best.
maybe someday there'll be a new
New
system.
system.
I'm on it, right?
Yeah. Scan it.
So the last part of that project actually is the custodial storage space in the men's locker room is going to be made into a changing stall. And in the women's locker room, we're going to knock out a portion of the wall that goes into the facility storage and have a private changing stall for the women's locker room as well.
When I've been to the pool over the summer, I noticed that on so that'd be the south side, the ends of the beams that are, the roof trusses, I
That's
suppose.
happening too.
Yeah, it's not looking good. The
Right.
finish is not looking good on the ends of those. It's not as bad as it has on the north side. And I was noticing maybe yesterday that water is obviously condensing because there were little spots of water under which I'm assuming was under each of those truss points, which was just wrecking the finish.
We're currently looking into the best way to remedy that situation. We're going to have a representative from Sherwin-Williams actually come out
Good.
and meet us as well. We've talked to a painting contractor, 2 of them actually, and we've had our architect ratio
Yeah.
reach out to the manufacturer of the beams, and we're not coming up with a surefire solution at this point.
Right, because I would think it would be more structural, and because the structural problem is what's leading to the paint problem, right? Anyway, you don't.
Moisture and sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We addressed it, Nancy, in the design. Staff had concerns. What about exposure with intense sunlight? And, everyone tells you they're pre-this and pre-that, still fading and deterioration.
Our painting contractor was hypothesizing that just the proximity to the pool and the chemicals and chlorine may accelerate the breakdown of the varnish that was applied to the wood. So we've looked at a number of different options and we're still digging through it to find out what the best solution
I
would
should
be.
have known you would have spotted it already.
And that wouldn't surprise us because we know pools are very caustic. you know, so
Right,
just,
and it's different, I mean, the north side, which of course doesn't get as much sun, but the
Right.
north side doesn't have anywhere near
right.
that amount of.
Now, if they were solar panels to begin with, we would have been in business, but obviously a lot of fading.
One thing I'll mention is that Ratio's been, they're donating all these services, all the design services, so I think they're really trying to see us through this project to total completion. Now, years later, we're still working through a few things, but they're standing by the product, and we really appreciate that.
Good, yeah.
That is wonderful.
Well, and it helps them, I mean, I don't mean to demean the fact that they're helping us, because it is terrific, but it's certainly of use to them down
Mhm.
the line, and other things that they would design and set up.
Absolutely.
Right. All right, I'm coming out of my days here, so that's it. Tim?
All
We
right.
don't have anything else we need to do under financial reports, right?
We're all set.
Budget report was the last update, so Tim, I think you're up.
Great. I was going to mention, we were hoping to have some updated information on Leal Park tonight. That's why we had the extra executive session if we needed it. We don't have that information, so we'll come back for next month with that. Hopefully we'll have it then. I was asked to remind commissioners for the last call, anybody interested in attending the NRPA conference, let us know. It's about the third week of September. Rogers, I think, signed up. I think the other commissioners were engaged, but Kelsey asked me to ask one more time. We can still fit that in if somebody decided to go, but let us know or just send us a note. Yes. Very, very busy summer season. Let me start off. I have a long list here. I'll try to keep us moving. Really just want to thank all the full-time and seasonal staff for making so many things wonderful in our short but fun summer season. Everybody does such a terrific job, 100%. For the number of people we serve and the things we offer and all the events, generally everything went very, very smoothly. So we're very, very pleased about that. Recreation just knocked it out with aquatics, community programs, athletics, the outreach and wellness and environmental programs. Each one of those groups had something special or did 2 or 3 amazing things. We could stay here all night to elaborate that, but just want to make sure we're thanking folks. Same with planning and operations, the planning facilities, grounds and arbor, natural areas and construction staff, just each had many, many successes and add to things that people notice. So we're very pleased. They make us look really good and appear very beautiful. Certainly at admin, HR, and fundraising and accounting staff, very busy with all the summer functions, including audit and all of those busy things, getting staff hired for the season and continuing to raise money for us. So very, very pleased with that. Andy covered the things at Phillips, but I just wanted to touch on what a difference that all makes. It's so exciting to me to see all the, what I'd call our faithful and regular customers that have come there since opening in 1995, and just now we're starting to see some major, redevelopment there. The interior started, the previous year with painting in the floors, moving to the exterior to shore it up, make sure the siding is good. The whole new landscape gives us a real garden appeal. We're getting some new sculpture. We're working on that. So next up, coming down the pike, is looking at the playground. So essentially, the entire site has been flipped and upgraded and modernized. The addition of the kitchen will expand a whole new arm of programming. Everybody we've talked to has been excited. We just met with Special Rec today, new staff, and they can't wait to come over. So we're very, very excited about that. Just want to mention at the Crystal Lake Family Aquatic Center, we hosted the conference meet this year. There's just literally over thousands of people there. Urbana Police told me that it was just really well coordinated. They had no issues, no traffic, people parked sanely, and so they were very pleased when they see that number of people come to one park site. I think everyone had fun, and it's just amazing to see how the Nadiators program has really exploded in the numbers. I know when our kids were involved, it was 70 to 80, and that was a pretty good, group. And now I think the numbers.
227, I believe.
I just couldn't believe it's over 200 people. I mean, that just completely
227.
blows me away.
Yeah.
Noise for water aerobics.
We were right,
Just like the water is boiling.
before we opened the new pool, it was around 75.
Right.
So now we're at
Just look at that growth.
227.
That's just amazing.
That's great.
Just one.
The biggest program in the county, then, right?
Effingham's bigger, but besides Effingham, yes.
Wow.
That's really cool. Now I'm getting on dangerous territory because I'm going to call out a program area because everyone does amazing work, but just want to mention neighborhood nights really continue to just flourish. More people are coming. I think the people look forward to being there. All of our affiliated groups that are out with information. We just met with public health this week, and I think they're interested in joining the crew to be out there to, promote critical, and it's good timing because there's a lot of seasonal things that they deal with. Sometimes not so good, but need to get the word out. So love that. I mentioned a couple of times in previous board reports, but the Urbana Realtor tours are really exciting. I think we're making some impact. They're a little bit smaller groups, but they're focused in various different neighborhoods. So we're really trying to sell various neighborhoods and talk about all the amenities. I think we get a lot of good questions. People are still very excited in the Think Urbana program, so I think that's moving in the right direction for us. Was fortunate to be able to attend the UPD Youth Theater this year. It was Thoroughly Modern Millie out at Parkland.
great.
Parkland does a fabulous job. It's a beautiful theater. It's a really good, positive fit. I went Sunday, the last day, and it was virtually sold out. In fact, I tried to go Saturday, but they sold the tickets. And again, there's just a ton of support. We want the paid seats in there. I bought my tickets too, but let the customers come first. I'm sure there are a lot of proud, families there on that Saturday night. Again, just had to mention our outreach and wellness group. We had a new connection this weekend at the Silver Water neighborhood area off Philo Road.
Yes.
Wonderful. There was about 150 people out. Cranert sponsored it. Yeah, when we didn't know. I think we literally thought it could just be kind of bumping up against a few
There was a
people.
big newspaper article.
Yep.
There was. The
Yep,
day
that was
before
it.
definitely helped. And that surprised everybody. They didn't see that coming. They just
Yeah.
got a hold of that. But outdoor games, we did kids, entertain the kids. There was music, dancing, food, bounce house, a couple other neat games. And so it was just really positive. Actually, Cranert kind of took a lead, but they invited city and fire and us with Sam Smith. Yeah, and kind of brought us in on that. And so really exciting. And that's an example of how once you penetrate a neighborhood, you're able to have, a better dialogue and see, who might be interested, just asking people. We also, the outreach group, Corky and I and Elsie had an impromptu tour of Salt and Light. Terrific facility. I can see us working with them in the future. We got a lot of good positive feedback. If you haven't been there, you should go over there. It's really amazing. They've got a lot of exciting things going on and some new things coming out. Some of the newer things are they have a new technology center. Somebody helped fund, so they have a place where there'll be computers where people can come in, just goof around or play or search the internet or job search, things like that. So we might see an opportunity for our other staff, our shared staff from Clark Lindsay, maybe having a few hours over there just helping, people with that. They have a child care center, so the workers that are there have some child care provided. And then their storefront, glass front section, they're going to turn into a coffee bistro type thing. So it'll be real neat, have a little more storefront presence there. But very nice to have them in the neighborhood. I think we covered UPDAC, but we're enjoying getting to know the new people. We've enjoyed the tours. We always get a lot of good questions and interest on, just getting people oriented. So we're real excited about the August picnic and should get things start with a bang. On the grants outlook, we have some interesting different ones we're working on and applying for. Perhaps a clean energy grant. OSLAD is coming up. The Safe Routes to School has emerged. Good news on that. They're offering 100% funding for that, so we might have an application. The IDOT SPR grant, that should be starting in the near future this fall, and potentially an NRPA grant. So we'll see. We're not guaranteed. Obviously, the more larger national ones are harder to get, so we're hopeful we'll still come through. UPD's strategic plan, we have a very long process. Planning team has just been kicking it. They're at all events. They're reaching out. They're at neighborhood nights. We've had a number of presentations to some civic service clubs. I'll be at City Council next Monday to give them an update. So we're really pleased at how that's going. We're also right now in the process of doing interviews with our, key stakeholder agencies, schools, city, county, that sort of thing. We always get a lot of feedback. There's our direct questions, and then there's the dialogue, and that's really important. That's how we sort of team build and see what they're doing, what their strategic goals are. Lastly, I just want to mention, we had a community meeting that the Community Coalition was invited to, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. There was a real spate of, violence in whole central Illinois. Decatur, Kankakee, Bloomington, Normal, Springfield, Champaign, Urbana, Danville. Just had a, lot of shootings. And so wanted to kind of pull people together. But what we learned is there's a lot of needs out there. There's a real hunger. And I think we have to really take a look at our programming. Basically what I heard, there was, lots of statements, and it was broken into issues, strengths, and then actions. So there's a lot of information, but my takeaway was people really need mentoring. There's a real call for children, children, toddlers, kids, youth, middle school, high school, young adult, singles, marrieds, and grandparents, because everybody's involved in some role of family, reconnection, some people are raising kids. And so kind of what we heard is that the general programs that we offer, just scattershot, are not effective. That, if we're really trying to get to the underrepresented, we have to start doing things a new way. We're learning some of those new ways, and I think we're going to make some bigger impact. But, people were able to really stand up and be open and critical, So I think there's a role for, government, local, state, federal, our churches, our businesses, and civic organizations all need to start working together, which is interesting because that really was what the coalition started out to try to do, which is let's de-silo, let's start working together. And so we're starting to see, some benefits of that. But on the community violence, that continues to increase. And so we have a lot more work to do. But it is encouraging because we are seeing successes. The Fresh Start program has been effective. I think we're starting a new kind of in between what we all do and what the Fresh Start does, but try to intervene with, young people that are maybe on a track that won't lead to positive outcomes. And what can we do to interrupt that? So I think we have some specific targeted programs, to do that. But what's it mean for the UPD? Keep doing what we're doing, because that need is still there, all the basic ongoing type programs, but also our outreach will definitely make some more impact on that. So we are encouraged. I can answer any questions if there are any.
Did you want a brief update on the pool?
Yes, I think, just a little note, in June, I asked Corky, hey, can you give us numbers? Well, we got so involved, I forgot. We had a very brief meeting July, we didn't really have that, and so I asked
Right.
Corky to do it again, and I almost forgot.
And these are real brief. These are just
Thank
kind
you.
of window shots of what's happening. But obviously last year was a fantastic year. This year's a good year, not quite as fantastic with the weather, rains coming and going. And so this is just for attendance. That counts as they come through the door at the pool. We are this year around 45,000 visits. Last year at this time we were around 51. So we're about 6,000 visits off. That doesn't count some of the groups that go through a different system. Good news, dollar-wise though, what's come through the pool itself. In 17 we're at 262,600. This year we're 261, so we're only about $1,500 off from a revenue standpoint. But
It can be the difference
Yeah.
between pass sales versus daily admissions.
So
You know.
that's the general.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We're selling Dippin' Dots, and
Oh, that's
they've done
making
well.
a big difference. That actually really is.
Yeah.
I've partaken in that.
I think the income from that is counted in this 200.
Yes, the income is
Gotcha.
counted in this. And if you looked at the report, the sales out at the sales for recreation were like 19,000 compared to 4 or 5 last year. So I'm guessing that's
Dippin' Dots.
that's the
That's a lot.
Dippin' Dots. I know at one point it was at $10,000 in sales, so we're probably more near the 15,000 right now. So we get a
It's fun.
50% profit on that.
That's
So.
really awesome.
That's
Good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's a big window, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing just by looking at last year's numbers, we'll probably be somewhere in the mid 50,000 visit this year, which for the way the weather's kind of
Right.
come and gone, not too bad. Well, I know it's been hot. It's also been iffy with the rains, so.
12 inches of rain in July.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and it was not huge pour-outs, but just continual, yeah. So I'm sure that affects
Yeah.
people's daily decisions.
Standing is extreme heat is not good either because.
Right, when it gets too hot, then nobody wants to be out there on a pool deck either, so there is a balance. 86 is about right.
Right.
can
We've
only
I
been-
want that every day
Yeah, yeah, I
for
hear you,
90 days.
for sure. Thank you, Corky.
Yep.
All right, president is next. President is somewhere between here and France, I assume. But the vice president, since he's got the chair, I wanted to say that I had, early on in the season, I had gone over to the gardens at Learman with some extra garden tools. And I got a thank you note from Anna, I think it's Anna Barnes. Which was, I mean, it's beside the point, except that she said at the end, what a wonderful contribution the Park District had made to the success of the gardens. over this year.
Whoops.
I wanted to let you know that, and I also wanted to warn you that hopefully for the study session, I'm gonna have a little collection of playground images that I took from our last trip, because I saw some really interesting things, really interesting use of long spaces, a lot of, I mean, this is Australia, so a lot of water stuff, in places because you can't go in the water because there are crocodiles.
Sure.
So make sure there are crocodiles that will eat you.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I'll include a picture so you'll see why you wouldn't want to go on the beach. A really interesting nature playground that had some quite interesting features. I was showing Tim a couple of the things. But anyway, that's because that's one of my my real interests, and I think that Tim and I were just talking. A teen playground is really something that I have great interest in, and a lot of these things I think we can incorporate into a teen playground. So you're warned. And that's it. Oh, and the agenda. I have no idea about the agenda. So, do you have?
It's more of our typical things. We'll have probably some bids, nothing that I can think of off the top that's unusual.
And we'll be doing the IDOT stuff next month, right? 'Cause
We
none of
hope
this
so.
we have to do tonight.
Yeah, right, correct. We hope we'll have information. Yep.
Okay. All right, then we're on to liaison reports. Okay.
Finance didn't meet, so
Right.
Michael's still gone,
All
so.
right.
I think we're meeting at the end of this month.
Yeah,
We do have our meetings
August
set.
30th, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
31st.
31st, I think it
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Thank you.
Policy study group.
We have not met. Do we have a meeting on Thursday?
We do,
You might.
It's on my
Katie?
calendar. I would have to reschedule. If
We had a meeting scheduled for August 23rd.
Oh,
okay.
Oh,
That was when our next meeting was scheduled
I have it
for.
on this one.
Do you have that on your
I
calendar?
think I do. It's not next, I mean, the next week. Double check.
For some reason.
If that doesn't work for you, though, just email us and
Oh,
we'll-
no, it doesn't. That's
I
the
do a
day.
noon.
The
meeting.
23rd.
No,
I
it
do have
doesn't.
that scheduled.
Sorry.
It's okay. I don't know that we had any pressing
Okay.
matters anyway, but
It's just
I know we want
getting
to
us-
keep the ball rolling. So I'll just ask Alex to get something rescheduled and
Okay.
we'll try to, is there certain dates, times? Should I talk to you after?
Yes,
Okay.
and no. It's just
Okay.
whatever the Swiss cheese in my calendar.
Okay.
We
No,
can-
that's cool.
We can roll with it.
Got more holes or more.
yeah.
All right, LaShonda's not here to do that.
She did text
Oh,
me
okay.
something, if you would like me to
Ah,
read it,
good.
if you think that's appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. If you would not, then I would not. Basically, she wanted to mention on the UPDAC ad hoc that we had a good meeting and we discussed a lot of priorities for 2018 and 19. Jump down to foundation. I think she was I think she overall was just reporting for the foundation part that the foundation board is committed to a public launch of our $2 million campaign at the Jazz Walk event coming up on September 7th. So that was her main thing. Obviously, there's more to that, but please come for that event. And I think we're anticipating a special announcement. So she wanted everyone to know about that.
Yeah, and we did have a meeting for the planning study group, and I'll just add to the, her comments that we are looking at a more overarching, we'll essentially have a theme, I think, for the upcoming contract year, and all of the things that, and of course, it's the underserved study, but there are lots of different ways that the Park District is addressing that, and because there are so many different underserved groups, and we want to get that, really looking at that and looking into a much more community-wide view of the things of the underserved, because it's become obvious from what Tim just said about the community coalition that things aren't going particularly well, and we need to be proactive about the things. And if we can get them as ambassadors and start thinking and having that thinking spreading out into the citizenry of Urbana, I think that it will help. I think we'll have more people volunteering to mentor, for example. Anyway, that's the umbrella for the year, and I think we're pretty excited about the idea, because the new people, the new self-nominated people are very interested in participating, and we want to tap that energy. And the other thing we talked about was ways to keep former UPDAC people advised of what's going on. And we haven't come up with any really concrete things, but that's something else that we're thinking about, because we think it's really important, because I know that I found all those years ago that once I had been in UPDAC, it was I felt a whole different proprietary feeling about all the parks in Urbana, and I'm sure that the majority of people feel that way. Oh, Schmager, who heard of that candidate? What the heck is that? And then they know, and they know what's going on, and that sense of belonging is something that we want to keep going and growing. So we're looking at ways. We're going to start looking at ways that we can do that.
She had a couple other notes, if you want me to read on up there. Those were all kind of in line with that. She mentioned, too, we did discuss the idea of creating some type of teen board. We used to have a teen board before, but that's kind of an old-fashioned model. But what could we sort of replicate for today? So we spent some time talking about that. Certainly engagement with UPD and the Urbana High School. There's a couple of, or school system, there's a couple of new principals coming, so we definitely want to meet and get to know those. Our current chair she works through the Vineyard. They have a facility called the Hope Center that she was willing to include if that was a place teens wanted to go, or we needed extra meeting space, or do focus groups, or any kind of outreach, we'd have that available. I think we reported on the Silver and Vaughter, working with Cranert and Sam Smith. Basically, I think we were talking about finding more and better ways to, work with diversity training with staff and the community in better ways to, learn what our different cultures are working at. But bottom line, to create attention to inclusiveness. We have a "You Belong Here" tagline, philosophy, and so how many different ways can we share that and get that out in the community? So it was a very good meeting. I think we had a lot of good ideas. We'll be very busy implementing.
Yeah, I think
this
everybody
next year.
came away really vitalized from that meeting. That's a good start to the year. All right, old business. I don't think we have any. Did we take anything off the consent agenda? New business. IDOT. Nope.
Right?
You're
We need a motion.
going to go ahead and make the motion.
Sure. I move we table action on this item
okay.
until
Thank you.
further information regarding the Urbana Park District's counter offer to IDOT is received.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Great.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on to the James Room.
We do have a bid.
Okay, so as Tim had mentioned in his report, Phillips has really seen a lot of improvements recently. We're really managing to flip the site as a whole, and we do have the playground replacement still to come. But within the building, I think our last major area of renovation is within the James Room kitchen spaces. So they're really underutilized currently for programs and rentals. The kitchen's small. It's been cited a few times in that ADA report for being inaccessible. And we see it as an opportunity to bring CUSR into more programming options in Urbana. So we engaged IGW, I believe in early 2017, for a study to open up those 2 rooms into a teaching kitchen, classroom, and staff soon after started taking, I think, 4 or 5 tours of different teaching kitchens in Champaign-Urbana, and we entered into the design agreement with IGW that included the siding project as well, but we decided to move this so after the camps have left the building for obvious reasons. So we've included CUSR in all this design planning as well. They've sat in with the meetings with us and the architect, and we have the final design that is included in the packet for you there. And it's taking out that wall that separates the kitchen and the James room, opening it up into one large kitchen, open kitchen concept. Wall of cabinets, 2 refrigerators, double oven. It has the dish sink, I guess, that would be in front of the window, and a hand washing sink on a large island. That large island has the stove top, and really is going to be that center area where an instructor would be able to teach to the class. And then we'll have some video capabilities where that's everything that they're doing on the tabletop will then be displayed on a TV monitor up on the wall. So then the open area and the rest of the classroom, we're envisioning movable tables and chairs, ideally tables that are going to rise or lower depending on the need for the class. So if it's standing up in a knife skills class, you raise the tables, or can be lowered for meetings or anything else that space would be used for. There's a small storage closet in the James room currently, and what we have is to actually take over the exit hallway that's just outside of the James room. So in essence, we're basically doubling the storage for that, which I think we're going to need with the increased usage of the room and the new equipment, tables and chairs. So we went out to bid in July 10th, and we had an opening on August 7th. We received 5 bids. The low bid was from Barber and Diatley from Urbana, $122,000. We have funds budgeted for the project in 2017, 2018 capital ADA dollars, and that includes a $45,000 special distribution from CUSR Reserve, and then we have a little bit from Recreation Small Equipment as well. And we're recommending to include a 10% contingency with the project.
Should also include in there that we're replacing the water fountains with bottle fountains. The originals that are in there, the ones that are in there are originals, and they're really kind of tacky looking. And
If you've noticed the ones at the Nature Center, it'll be that model.
Well, I move in accordance with section 2, part. No.
Next.
Sorry,
next
I'm jumping ahead. So I moved to. I'm sorry.
Not there yet, so.
Right, we don't have to do that part. To award the Phillips Recreation Center James Room Kitchen remodeling project in the amount of $122,000 and a contingency of $12,200 to Barber and Diatley of Urbana, Illinois.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote. Aye.
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 All right. That's, we have nothing new. We have no new business from the consent agenda.
No.
So commissioners, you got anything to say? I have
I'm
my
good.
say. Then I think we're going to be done.
Great. Thank you all.